The southeast, here we're likely to see gales at times overnight tonight, and a generally frost-free night tonight with temperatures around mid-single figures. As for the start of the new working week then, well, once again, with low pressure dominating, sitting close by towards the west of the UK, it'll be a very unsettled start to Monday. And across Scotland, there'll be a mixture of bright spells and a scattering of showers. The showers, it's a little bit wintry across the hills of Scotland, a touch of frost possible in a few well-sheltered spots here. And across Northern Ireland, quite breezy, some outbreaks of showery rain at times, and showery bursts of rain too across western parts of England into Wales, with the clearest spells between the showers towards the south and east of England. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday then, with low pressure still close by, just sitting towards the west of the UK there, there'll be further showers or longer spells of rain in all parts. Some of the showers could be quite heavy, very blustery winds, particularly towards the south and southwest of the UK. And although temperatures will be close to the seasonal average, peaking in the range 6 to 9 Celsius, it's going to feel much cooler out and about given the wind and those showers at times too. Into the evening, with low pressure still close by, there'll be further showers or longer spells of rain in pretty much all parts of the UK. A few clear spells between, but also some quite blustery winds too. But with the blustery winds and those showers, it should stay fairly mild overnight. There'll be further rain or showers at times on Tuesday and Wednesday, but just a hint of high pressure starting to build in later in the week, so things could well turn a bit quieter.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Don't miss out as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewbs, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, there you are. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 26th of January, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you for joining me on this blustery Sunday afternoon. Nowhere to go, so you may as well stay with me. Hey, good idea. Right, a damning poll finds just 1 in 10 think Labour are doing a good job in government, showing a collapse in support unprecedented in the modern era, with voters experiencing so-called buyer's remorse. Is that you? But it's not all doom and gloom for Keir Starmer. He seems to have a fan in, wait for it, President Trump, who maintains the Prime Minister is doing, his words, a very good job thus far, and that the pair have a very good relationship. Could the President help boost the PM's popularity at home? Oh, yes, and do bald blokes really have a secret superpower? Over women, that is. A new study, and some men, obviously, a new study has found men lacking in the hair department were more likely to be chatted up, I'm putting it politely here, by the opposite sex. Gents, it could be time to consider that razor. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So we have all bases covered this afternoon for you, from Starmer to sex and anything in between. And if that's an unpleasant thought for you, I do apologise. It is a Sunday afternoon. And this show is nothing without you and your views. It really is important to me. So get your thoughts coming in. Very, very simple to do so. Visiting gbnews.com/your say. Anything you want to talk about, basically, it's a Sunday afternoon, anything goes. And talking of anything going, these two are keeping me company this afternoon. It is political commentator Matthew Stadler and former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley, who are both, well, they've got a lot to say on bald men being sexy, and one of them might be nearly in that category, eh? No names, no pack drill, just yet. But before we get stuck into today's stories, here is the news with the very lovely Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 1 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Home Secretary has warned tech companies terrorist material viewed by Southport killer Axel Rudiker could inspire another atrocity unless they take action. Yvette Cooper has written to X, Meta, TikTok, Google and YouTube, calling on them to urgently review material accessed by the killer, which is still available online. Rudiker easily downloaded an Al-Qaeda training manual and watched graphic footage of a terrorist knife attack before he killed 3 young girls. It comes as it's been revealed the Home Office missed several opportunities to identify him as a terror threat. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch told GB News the issue of integration must be looked at following the attack.
He should have been in love with this country. He should have been saying, this is the best country on earth. I say, and the parents, I don't know if they did or not, because that's how I feel. And I do think that we need to have a broader conversation about integration in this country. It's got to be active, not passive. It didn't matter so much when only a handful of people were coming from nearby countries at a very slow rate. Now, people from all over the place are coming very quickly, and because of technology, they can still keep their heads and their cultures elsewhere. This is dangerous.
Meanwhile, the government says stricter checks for online knife purchases will be introduced following the Southport attack. Retailers selling knives online will require ID to purchase and also on delivery. It's after it emerged the Southport killer Axel Rudiker brought the knife he used to kill 3 young girls from Amazon when he was just 17 years old. The government has now brought forward planned changes to online knife sales. In other news, Donald Trump has said he thinks Sir Keir Starmer has done a very good job thus far and said the pair will speak over the phone over the next 24 hours. The US president said he and the Prime Minister get along well, despite Sir Keir being liberal, which he said is a little bit different from me. Mr. Trump told reporters on Air Force One that his first international trip could be to the UK or Saudi Arabia, the first country he travelled to as president during his first term. Sir Keir most recently met with Mr. Trump at Trump Tower in New York during the presidential campaign. A 53-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 48-year-old Claire Chick, who was found fatally injured in a street in Plymouth. Miss Chick, who was previously known as Claire Butler, was taken to hospital but sadly died on Thursday. Paul Butler has been charged with her murder and is due to appear before Plymouth Magistrates Court tomorrow. Israel has prevented thousands of displaced Palestinians from returning home to northern Gaza after accusing Hamas of breaching the ceasefire deal. This comes after Hamas released 4 Israeli female soldiers and Israel freed 200 Palestinian prisoners. But the Israeli government said Palestinians would not be allowed to travel north until plans were in place for the release of Israeli civilian Arbel Yahoud. According to the deal, Hamas was to release civilians before soldiers. A 19-year-old man has died after his car was struck by a falling tree in Scotland during Storm Eowyn, which the Met Office says was the strongest storm to hit the UK in 10 years, with wind gusts of up to 100 miles per hour. Around 75,000 in Northern Ireland and 35,000 in Scotland are still without power. Some will have to wait several days to be reconnected. Meanwhile, travel services remain severely disrupted in Scotland, with trains and ferries suspended and roads closed. And it's not over yet. The Spanish-named storm Herminia is on the way and will bring heavy rain, gales and hill snow up from the southwest on Sunday and Monday. And Elon Musk has made a surprise appearance at a campaign event for Germany's right-leaning AfD, where he urged supporters to move beyond their past guilt. Speaking via video link to a hall of around 4,500 Alternative for Deutschland supporters, the tech billionaire said they are the best hope for Germany.
It's okay to be proud to be German. This is a very important principle, it's okay. It's good to be proud of German culture, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I have a rule of thumb normally when I'm working with Sophia, who is slightly younger than me, not to wear the same colour, right? Because she, no matter what colour it is, she always wears it better than me. And guess what? Hey, we're both wearing blue today, and guess who looks better in it? Yeah. If you want to have a comment on that, gbnews.com/your say, but keep it nice, please. Thank you. OK, now let's get stuck into today's story, shall we? Sir Keir Starmer continues to face an uphill battle to win back the support of the public after, let's say, turbulent few months, shall we, for his Labour government. New polling shows that just 1 in 10 people think Labour are doing a good job, while over half of those asked believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. However, it's not all doom and gloom for Starmer. He seems to have a fan in President Trump, who maintains the Prime Minister is doing a very good job thus far, saying the two have a very good relationship. That special relationship in full there. Joining me now is former Labour MP Lloyd Russell Moyle to delve more into this story. Lloyd, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Now, I think it's fair to say, even as a Labour person, that there are some mistakes that Keir Starmer and co have made.
Well, my MP, who's the Prime Minister's private secretary, said to our CLP this week that he acknowledges that that there are mistakes that have been made. So I think that from the very top, they understand that nothing is going to be perfect. But I think we can get too obsessed on polls and polling. If we remember, in 1981, Thatcher was trailing both Labour and the SDP Liberal Alliance in third place, and everyone said she was a goner. Now, I don't always agree with Thatcher's policies or views or what she did, but no one can doubt that she went on to become one of the most successful prime ministers this country has had in terms of electoral terms and in terms of changing the country in her image. So I do think that we can get too worked up about how people feel a year after or just under a year after election, rather than thinking, where's the long-term direction here? and what will it look like in 4 years' time? And I think there's still a lot to play for.
OK, I mean, but it's not great that Labour is on track to become... It's not just one poll, is it, Lloyd? It's several polls. Labour is on track to become one of the most hated EU governments of all time. I mean, your net approval rating sits at minus 45%.
Yes, and I could have said all of that about Thatcher governments. I could have said some of that even about Blair government at different moments. And those two governments were extremely successful in creating the country in their image. And I think Keir should not be waylaid by those polls. I think there are things that he's done wrong and need to be corrected. Of course, no one is perfect, not even Sir Keir.
OK, what would you... There are things that he's done wrong, you said. What would you say is the worst thing that Labour have done so far? It was quite a big charge, to be fair.
Well, you might say so. Look, I think the first thing is they need to get their communications better. Thatcher, if you remember, said every Prime Minister needs a Willie. She had Willie Whitelaw in Parliament as her spokesperson, and she had Ingram outside Parliament. Blair, of course, had Mandelson in Parliament, and he had Campbell outside of Parliament. I'm in politics, and I don't know who our major spokesperson is or the Prime Minister outside of politics or in Parliament. And I think those are the kinds of things that we need to correct. I personally think that some of the decisions around inheritance tax and national insurance thresholds will need to be re-looked at in the cold light of day. But broadly, this idea that we want to invest in AI, we want to rebuild our economy, and despite all of the GB News naysayers saying the economy is going to down in free fall, we've seen it's not done that. It's stabilised. Growth from the IMF says that it's actually going to be quite good next year. All of those things actually have not proven true from the naysayers. So look, there are things that will be wrong, and there are things that I will criticise them for, but generally we have 4 years left, and this is a long slog. It is a marathon, not a race.
OK, it's not just GB News saying that, though, is it? I mean, the number of firms on the brink of collapse has surged under Labour, and separate figures yesterday showed private sector jobs falling in January at the fastest pace since 2009. Excluding the pandemic. So it's not just GB News saying this. I mean, you know, there are lots of official bodies and companies and businesses saying, look, we are really, really feeling this. And, you know, the honeymoon period had better sort of like, you know, come back pretty soon, or else we're going to go out of business.
Oh, I think the honeymoon period of this government went very quickly because it got such a bad economic inheritance. I mean, the country has been economically wrecked, but not just by
Lloyd, if you mention a black hole...
Not just by Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, and I like Kwasi personally, but they did ruin the economy, but actually by 10 years of austerity, and lots of companies, lots of public sector institutions have been hanging on by the skin of their teeth, and I'm afraid some will not be able to be saved in time because the groundwork that we inherited, that Labour inherited, was so awful, I'm afraid.
Oh, but you
have to acknowledge that.
To be fair, Lloyd, you didn't make the situation any easier if we are going to go down the black hole route, and I'd rather not. But, you know...
Well, you're the one that's raised the black hole, not me.
Well, only because you were alluding to it, because you're not brave enough to actually utter, and I don't blame you, utter the words black hole. But, you know, the hole that isn't, you know, is sort of like kind of dark, shall we say. I mean, but you did make it worse by handing out inflation-busting pay rises to unions who, let's be honest, fund the Labour Party.
No, in fact, we helped solve that. Those unions, because the disputes were not sorted out, were ending up crippling the NHS and the railway, causing huge problems for our productivity. And what Labour believes in is decent negotiations with unions around the table. You move on and you build your country from there. The Conservatives were leading us into perpetual internal warfare, and we were slipping behind year after year.
OK, right, Lloyd, just one final quick question for you. I mean, Starmer does have a supporter. Trump has given him his full backing, saying he's doing a good job. Starmer happy with that one, do you think?
Well, look, I have always said that Donald Trump has many problems, but he is someone who likes to cut a deal. And again, on this show, I come on very regularly on GB News, and I'm told Starmer will not be able to deal with Trump because Trump will hate it that he was nasty about him 5 years ago or during the election. And I always say that Trump understands the cut and thrust of politics, Trump understands a good argument, and Trump understands still the need of making a good deal, and those things don't necessarily infect each other. And I think this is proof in that pudding. He's not no lover of Starmer, but he understands he could cut a good deal with Britain, and so therefore he is orientating himself to do that. And people should stop talking down that relationship with Trump and Starmer, which GB News and others on the right-wing press have been doing for months now.
Hold on, Lloyd. I know I've got... Lloyd,
Stop talking down Britain and make sure that we say we could get a good deal with America and we have a good relationship with America instead of being naysayers. That's exactly what Rachel Reeves has said we need to stop doing. Stop being naysayers and talk up Britain a bit more and stop undermining it.
All right, Lloyd, but just very quickly, it was only 2019 that your leader said that Trump backing Boris Johnson said everything you need to know about Boris Johnson and his politics. Just leaving that one there. We've got to go now.
As I said, they understand the cut and thrust of politics. You can say something in a political argument, but you still get down and make the deal for your country.
I think a lot of the time it's called hypocrisy. Former Labour MP Lloyd Russell-Moore, always a joy talking to you. Thank you very much for having a good sense of humour as well. OK, we have... I'm sorry, I chatted on too much there. So let's see what my political panel make of this one. I have Matthew Staddon, and my voice is going. Excuse me, and former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley. Both here now. Thank you very much for joining me. OK, Labour, doing well, doing bad? Trump backs them?
It seems like it was almost yesterday that Charlie and I were in this studio, moving from studio to studio, where Charlie was desperately trying to defend the failing Conservative government. And here we are, and I'm sitting here trying to make sense of a poll that says that 1 in 10 people
trying desperately to defend a failing Labour government.
I'm not here to defend a Labour government, but I do want the Labour government to succeed, not just because I voted for them, but much more importantly because it is obviously in all of our interests, including every single one of GB News viewers' interests, that it does succeed, at least on the economy. I mean, we can have endless debates about important issues like immigration, and we might sit in slightly different, sometimes very different places. But on the economy, we have to hope it works. Now, am I confident that it's going to work? I wouldn't say I'm brimful of confidence, but the IMF the other day, and I'm sure it will be written off as some lefty international institution by, perhaps not by Charlie, but by some watching, the IMF has been positive about our future growth. That has to be good news. And Labour was very clear from the beginning, wasn't it? We have to fix the foundations because... look, I won't put it all down to the Tories, of course not. We had a pandemic and we've had a war in Ukraine and so forth. We left the European Union, which you might partly blame the Tories for.
Do not mention the...
I will, because... why not?
Black holes finished me off right. The B word really...
It's a really important part of, I think, why we aren't growing as fast as we might. Anyway, my point is, Labour had to get to grips with some fundamental issues, and there were only a few months in. If it doesn't get it right, because we live in a democracy, everyone watching and anyone else who is part of the 90% who doesn't think that Labour is doing a good job at this point will get a chance to vote them out. But let's hope that they succeed.
We can vote them out, but 4 years' time, Charlie.
Well, Matthew's right about one thing. I am desperate. And but enough about that. Back to the politics.
Yeah, in what sense? We haven't got around to that topic yet. That's more on that one coming later.
But I think, I mean, that was a good attempt by Lloyd there.
He's brilliant, Lloyd, to be fair. He does have a good sense of humour, which is sadly lacking in politics.
You're writing off my attempt.
But that was yours was brilliant as well. But I think, look, you know, if you take the IMF, for example, yes, I mean, they do tend to get things wrong. I would look a bit more closer to home, the Bank of England, which reduced the growth from, I think, a measly 0.3% to 0.1 anyway. But I think what's interesting is what Kemi Badenoch was actually saying this morning, which is that you...
On Camilla's show?
She might have done, yes. But I saw her on a range of programmes this morning. I was following very closely.
Good.
But she did say in one of the political programmes that you do actually, even in opposition, you do want your government to succeed in a way. You don't want to keep talking down the country. And that's why I think the big difference between this Labour government, where they've got it so wrong, and why there isn't the confidence in the economy, contrary to what Lloyd was saying, and the figures I think will speak for themselves, is because they have talked down the economy for so long. They have blamed 14 years of the past when actually they are in charge now. And the budget decisions that were made, increasing national insurance contributions, which has impacted on particularly the hospitality sector, where they're saying that they can't employ new people anymore, and there is no chance for growth in that sense. That's been choked off. You're now seeing the change of tack by Rachel Reeves saying we need this Trump optimism. Well, blame me. What a U-turn that is. Because because they were slagging him off no end over the last few years. So people don't believe that when they hear politicians like Rachel or Sir Keir Starmer all of a sudden rolling out the red carpet because of the history of what they've said in the past. So, I mean, it's the right approach, and you do want the economy to grow, you do want it to get better because it's jobs and livelihoods, but this Labour government is not providing it.
But Labour have been given a real kicking over some of the things, Dawn, that they've said in the past, in recent years, about Donald Trump, haven't they?
Yeah, because they were literally accusing him of being a neo-fascist and a Nazi and pretty much everything else you could call him.
I'm going to be specific. I'm not sure that anyone called him a neo-Nazi, but...
neo-fascist and a Nazi.
What I want to say here is that Trump himself has employed Elon Musk at quite a senior level of government, although he's not given him an office in the main bit of the White House. And Elon Musk, as we all know from following it on social media, has really got it in for Keir Starmer, thinks effectively that he's a threat to our security, to the security of our children. And now Donald Trump has come out and said, actually, I quite like Starmer. I might disagree with him. He said that Starmer's a liberal and he doesn't see himself as a liberal, but I like him and he's doing a good job. So that just shows that at the political level, people can say one thing, it might be ill-advised, but they can say one thing and say something else when it suits them.
OK.
I mean, number 10, I think, liked to talk up the meeting that I think Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump had. They had like a...
With David Lammy.
They got on really well, David Lammy. Evidently, Trump really liked David Lammy.
Well...
They bonded over...
I like David Lammy.
Pudding or something or other.
I think I would always be... If I was in advising government, I would be a little bit cautious. I would say this is a ruthless political strategy where you suck up to your opponent, where you sort of, make them pull down the sort of the drawbridges, everything falls by the wayside because Trump obviously wants something. He wants either a deal with the UK over something, he either wants to come back to obviously see probably King Charles. He wants, the state sort of,
Well,
visit.
he likes the UK.
He does. Obviously, he's got a great interest in particularly in Scotland and golf courses.
Yeah.
So I think he'll want something out of it. It's not just being kind for the sake of...
No, but we all should agree, shouldn't we, that even in the case of Trump, and I think he's doing incredibly dangerous things and says incredibly dangerous things, and he's just
let out... But he backs Keir Starmer.
Well, he's just let out...
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous, to be honest.
He's just let out all of those people who wanted physically to overthrow American democracy 4 years ago. I think that's an appalling thing to do. We can talk about the people... we could talk about all of that. Of course we can. I'm talking about Trump for the moment. But despite that, I do think that Starmer has to, and our British government has to have a decent enough relationship with our oldest ally.
No, we absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And we have to finish that there, on that important bombshell. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, which is at gbnews.com, and it is brilliant. You're with me, yeah, and I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is indeed GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. It is absolutely packed, including a shocking Home Office review that's revealed counter-terrorism officers believe the Southport killer was not in danger of being radicalised because he was interested in world affairs. You couldn't make this up. More on that shortly. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I'm really pleased to see this story. It's the news that bowel cancer screening, the age for that is going to be dropped from 60 to 50. And this is really, really important because bowel cancer is one of the biggest killers, and more people appear to be getting diagnosed with bowel cancer in their 50s. Not entirely clear why. And there was an inspirational woman called Deborah James who I actually met when I used to be the Shadow Health Secretary, and I remember meeting her when she had her cancer diagnosis and supporting her campaign, and she sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but it was a phenomenal campaign, and I think did inspire the nation. And this is so important. So people in their 50s are going to be sent these kits in the post. And I suppose my plea is just do not ignore these kits because you can deal with cancer if you catch it early enough.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this is not the most pleasant thing to do, and a lot of us aren't used to it and talking about it and whatever, but it's essential, obviously, to do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the other reason I wanted to sort of flag this is, I mean, we can sometimes make ourselves sort of pretty miserable looking at the newspapers, but this is undoubtedly a good initiative that the government have done this, and that campaigners have persuaded the government to do this. So, look, I just want to plea to everybody watching, if you get one of these kits, use it.
And, of course, I think it's really important within that to point out that this would not have helped Deborah, because Deborah was 40 when she died. And what's really important when you see stories like this is to pay attention to what your body is telling you. And if you have symptoms that are weird, it is important to go to your doctor and to talk about them and to take the tests.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back, and welcome to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you've got a nice cup of tea in front of you, and I'm just moving my drink out of sight because obviously it's not very professional, is it? But I need the caffeine. Come on, I need the caffeine. Right, OK, now a Sunday Times exclusive, a Home Office review has found counter-terrorism officers believe Southport killer Axel Rudakubana had an interest in world news and current affairs. Hey, people, so do I, by the way. But he was not in danger of being radicalised. A redacted version of the report into decisions made by Prevent is due to be released and is set to expose serious failings in the officer's approach to violent extremism. So where did it all go horribly wrong, and what should be done to prevent, no pun intended, absolutely no pun intended, this tragedy? Joining me now is security expert Professor Anthony Aglese to explain what went wrong. Hello, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me this morning. The most horrific story, we've all gone through it all week, and there's so many questions. The main question is, how was this allowed to happen? I mean, Prevent, what do they actually prevent? Nothing, as far as I can see.
Well, I think there was obviously a specific reason, and we shouldn't ignore the fact that the perpetrator here is the person who needs to be blamed. He's the key figure here, and you know, whether he was mad, what he is, we can discuss that. But there is no doubt that there were major failings, and the Sunday Times report makes this very clear indeed. What we have seen, particularly on the crucial meeting that they had about Rudakubana in 2019, a decision was taken not even to interview him. So this is a failing. It's a failing of the counter-terrorist police. We're told there are about 20 in the Greater Manchester area who deal with extremism in the northwest, and that they are very junior officers. They have very little experience, and they were kind of making a decision on the basis of whether or not there was evidence of ideology there. Now, you know, ideology is the sort of thing you might expect students in a politics course or philosophy course to debate with each other. It's not something that we should ask police officers to determine, and certainly not junior police officers. So that meeting was fatal and had appalling consequences. But it's not the only problem that's been highlighted. The first problem, of course, is what the police said on the 29th and the 30th of July, 2024, when they said there's no, in effect, there's no terror connection that they know about. And we know that's simply untrue. there were strong indications that there was a connection to terrorism. Even if subsequently they were proved to be wrong, the indications were very clear. The Al-Qaeda textbook, the ricin, not just ordered, but prepared and good to go. An obsession with massacres, a knife, and clearly thought being given to what all this added up to, including, you know, the Taylor Swift dance party, which we know is a target for Islamists. Even if he wasn't an Islamist, he was nevertheless clearly a terrorist. And for the cops to say, no, there's no terrorism connection, I mean, that beggars belief. Going beyond that to the decision, the way the PREVENT programme works is that an initial referral from schools, and it's important to realise, I think, in the case of Ruda Cabana, all the schools acted in an exemplary fashion.
Indeed, yes,
it
they
goes
did.
to the cops, it goes to these junior, inexperienced cops, and if they decide they can't detect an ideology, whatever that means, then that's the end of the matter. It never goes to the second so-called channel stage where experts then try to de-radicalise. But, you know, in the case of Axel Ruda-Cabana, you need only look at the photograph of him. He's obviously mad. But being mad, being a psychopath, doesn't mean you can't be a terrorist. In fact, the opposite is the case. So were the people qualified to decide whether or not he was a terrorist? The answer is no. Did they think in silos? Yes, they did. Did they think about things they weren't qualified to form an opinion on? Yes, they did. And did they then not read their notes before saying there's no terror connection to this case? So this is a very, very appalling report that was leaked to the Sunday Times, obviously intentionally, and very, very disturbing.
So, I mean, it says, his attacks did not meet the legal definition of terrorism. So we now are left that, the counter-terrorism unit is cut out of this equation because it wasn't terrorism. So we do need to assess what actually is terrorism and then assess how the counter-terrorism unit, reacts to this.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, to put it at its crudest, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks and it waddles, it is a duck. And to have a long discussion as to what kind of duck it is and what the duck has had access to is meaningless. We're charging these officers to make life or death decisions. And in this case, they made the wrong decision. And that's very serious. But there are other people, as this man appears on the face of it, to be so clearly psychotic, as he comes from a Rwandan background, given the Rwandan massacres, we must assume, as his parents were asylum seekers, we must assume that in the family there were memories of massacres and so on, and then add these Al-Qaeda issues to it. And I don't want to go into the details of what vile Ruda Cabana did with the knife that he had.
No, we don't need
but
to.
Those of us who follow Islamist terrorism will know that those attacks are also consistent with an Islamist approach to carrying out atrocities. So, the evidence is there. And what is happening to this country where we continually think in terms of categories? If you look at the PREVENT leaflets, all the things the police have to be careful about, data protection, they need to have safeguarding, interagency groups, etc., etc. I think the time for all that is gone. I think we need to take a whole new look at who is doing PREVENT. This is a life and death matter. It's not a matter for junior officers, not a matter to be shrugged off. And we need to have people who really understand that if you are attracted to images of violence, if you download the Al-Qaeda textbook, that's it. You're removed from society and kept removed until you realise the error of your ways will ever.
Brilliant words. Indeed. Thank you very much. That's Anthony Glees, expert Professor Anthony Glees. Thank you very much on the horror story that still has so many, many questions. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Batten down the hatches. Yeah, it's winter. Snow, wind and rain will be arriving on our shores today. Yes, another lot. Find out how you'll be impacted after the headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Your headlines at 1:34. The Home Secretary has warned tech companies terrorist material viewed by Southport killer Axel Ruder-Cabana could inspire another atrocity unless they take action. Yvette Cooper has written to X, Meta, TikTok, Google and YouTube, calling on them to urgently review material accessed by the killer, which is still available online. Ruder-Cabana easily downloaded an Al-Qaeda training manual and watched graphic footage of a terrorist knife attack before he killed 3 young girls. It comes as it's been revealed the Home Office missed several opportunities to identify him as a terror threat. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch told GB News the issue of integration must be looked at following the Southport attack.
He should have been in love with this country. He should have been saying, this is the best country on earth. I say, and the parents, I don't know if they did or not, because that's how I feel. And I do think that we need to have a broader conversation about integration in this country. It's got to be active, not passive. It didn't matter so much when only a handful of people were coming from nearby countries at a very slow rate. Now, people from all over the place are coming very quickly, and because of technology, they can still keep their heads and their cultures elsewhere. This is dangerous.
In other news, Donald Trump has said he thinks Sir Keir Starmer has done a very good job thus far and said the pair will speak over the phone over the next 24 hours. The US president said he and the Prime Minister get along well, despite Sir Keir being Liberal, which he said is a little bit different from me. Mr. Trump told reporters on Air Force One that his first international trip could be to the UK or Saudi Arabia, the first country he travelled to as president during his first term. Sir Keir most recently met with Mr. Trump at Trump Tower in New York during the presidential campaign. Now, a 53-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 48-year-old Claire Chick, who was found fatally injured in a street in Plymouth. Miss Chick, who was previously known as Claire Butler, was taken to hospital but sadly died on Thursday. Paul Butler has been charged with her murder and is due to appear before Plymouth Magistrates Court on Monday. And a 19-year-old man has died after his car was struck by a falling tree in Scotland during Storm Eowyn, which the Met Office says was the strongest storm to hit the UK in 10 years. Around 75,000 in Northern Ireland and 35,000 in Scotland are still without power. Some will have to wait several days to be reconnected. Meanwhile, travel services remain severely disrupted in Scotland, with trains and ferries suspended and roads closed. And it's not over yet. The Spanish-named storm Herminia is on the way and will bring heavy rain, gales and hill snow up from the southwest today and tomorrow. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to very unsettled weather across the UK over the next few days, all of us seeing some rain at times, often pretty blustery too. Low pressure is anchored towards the west of the UK, a deep air of low pressure, tightly backed isobars, indicating the strength of the winds, and weather fronts moving in from the southwest as we head through the rest of the day on Sunday. So, looking at things in more detail for this afternoon, and confirmation of wet and windy weather sweeping its way north and eastwards across the UK. The far north of Scotland hold on to some fine conditions, certainly until later in the afternoon, and started to turn brighter with some showers developing across the southwest of the UK. Particularly blustery with gales, though, out toward the west and southwest of the UK. Quite chilly towards the north, mild elsewhere, but those temperatures pretty academic given the very unsettled weather. As we head into the evening and overnight, we hold on to some rain across central parts of Scotland. Towards the north, there's still some fine conditions to end the day, but further south, as I say, there will be some rain, some hill snow too across central parts of Scotland. For Northern Ireland, it's a blustery end to Sunday, some showery bursts of rain, and pretty showery across the central slice generally of the UK, with some clearer spells towards the south for a time, but notice further outbreaks of rain starting to push in from the southwest, and that heralds a pretty unsettled night to come across the UK. The first band of rain with some hill snow affecting the far north of the UK there. A further pulse of wet weather moving its way northeastwards across England and Wales. We need to keep an eye on the strength of the wind, particularly down towards the southeast tonight. Gales are quite likely in places here. And wherever you are, generally frost-free. A touch of frost possible towards the far north of Scotland, but elsewhere temperatures generally in mid-single figures. As for us, Monday then, it's a very unsettled start to the new working week, I'm afraid. Low pressure dominating once again. Showers or longer spells of rain in all parts of the UK. Blustery winds too, particularly out towards the south and west of the UK. Some particularly heavy rain across parts of Wales at times too. And again, those temperatures close to the seasonal average, 5 to 9 Celsius, but the wind and rain feeling much cooler out and about.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Honestly. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Newsroom. Thank you very much for your company this Sunday afternoon. And Helen, who says, I don't need any more caffeine, I'm hyper as I am. Hi, Helen, by the way. Love your comments. Believe me, you haven't seen me hyper. But stay around, you might, if you're lucky. OK, now let's talk Britain's wild weather, shall we? It shows no signs of letting up as Storm Hermina rolls in, hot off the heels of Storm Eowyn. Devastation, and that at 75-mile-an-hour winds, heavy rain, and up to 4 inches of snow forecast. Oh, geez. Thousands remain without power and travel chaos already. So, will this relentless weather ever ease up? The person with all those answers is weather journalist Nathan Rao, who joins us now. Nathan, cheer us up with some good... Hello, Nathan. How are you?
I'm fine, Dawn. Unfortunately, you're going to need more caffeine over the next 3 days. This weather is going nowhere. I know, hot off the heels of Storm Eowyn, which, as you mentioned, was one of the worst storms in 10 years. We now have Storm Hermina. Sounds like something out of a Harry Potter film.
It does, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, nothing quite as magical, because certainly those parts of the country which have had heavy rain and strong winds from Storm Eowyn, they are not going to get any let-up for the next couple of days. There are weather warnings in place from the Met Office across southern England going right through until Tuesday for wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour, up to 3 inches of rain. And as you mentioned, in the north, where that cold air comes down, we could get some snow, really miserable. And as Storm Hermina, which is sitting off to the west coast of the UK, drizzles away in the middle of the week, there is another one on the way ahead of the weekend. And it is not until the weekend until things start to calm down. So yes, Dawn, get that caffeine stocked in, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So after this one's finished, it's mainly hitting the west of the country, did I hear you say, Nathan?
It's going to hit the south of the country and the southwest. So there are Met Office weather warnings in place right across southern England into Tuesday morning, as opposed to Storm Eowyn, which really hit the northwest of Scotland and the west coast. It's now the south, the southeast and southern England that's going to be in the firing line. Not quite as bad. The wind's not going to be quite as bad. Unlike Storm Eowyn, which was hurtled towards the UK on the jet stream, Storm Hermina is going to just sort of sit and waddle around the southwest of the country, not really moving very fast, but it is going to throw some wind and rain towards the UK. So we're not expecting anything quite as serious as Storm Eowyn, but certainly as miserable.
Oh, Nathan, thank you very much. And when I talk to you just before Christmas, I always say White Christmas. Nathan, I'm now going to say long, hot summer.
Yeah, no clue. At the rate we're going now, I wouldn't hold up much hope, but all we can do is keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nathan Rao, weather journalist, and always always full of the joys of spring. OK, now we are going to talk quickly to Matthew and Charlie about the weather, are we? Yes, I think we are. Boys, weather. Discuss. You've got a minute, so you've got 30 seconds each. It's a challenge to say something really exciting about the weather. Charlie.
Well, I'm not going.
That's it.
I'm not going to let it rain on our parade here in the GBNews studio because we're having such a good time. And that's the only good thing about the weather. If it's terrible, if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's showering, whatever it is, you can stay inside. You can watch GB News. You can have a great afternoon.
Yeah, you don't want to go out anywhere. So, is it global warming, Matthew? Let's get very, very serious about this.
I was just going to say that the GB...
Thank you, Matthew Stadler. That's great. Thank you very much for your comment.
I was going to say that the GB News audience will be delighted, I'm sure, to learn that in my journey here, I got absolutely drenched because I thought the storm was arriving yesterday in London, but it's arrived today. A different storm.
Different storm.
Is this down to global warming? How can we possibly tell?
Thoughts and prayers with Matthew Stadler. And if you'd like to offer Matthew your sympathy, you know how to get in touch. gbnews.com/your say. But you don't want to go anywhere because it's going to get sexy. It really is. We are talking about bald men and the secret of their success. See what I did there? More on that very shortly. Don't go too far. We'll see you very soon.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
People living with obesity are people, and they deserve the right for treatment and care as much as anyone else. What we need to understand is that obesity is a chronic condition or a disease, as some people call it. It's not a choice. And this is the bit that people really struggle with, is that people think this is a lifestyle choice and people have done this to themselves. What we now know is the science and the evidence shows us that this isn't a choice. People have genetic predispositions for living with obesity. What we need to do is be a bit more compassionate and caring to people that live with obesity and support them to make healthier choices, not actually just discriminate and tell them that they're doing something wrong when, you know, if I had asthma, for instance, you wouldn't be saying the same thing to me there. But then it's exactly the same.
Usually, if you're going for an operation of some form or other, there'll be often there is a criteria. So my mother, she had a knee operation. They wanted to make sure her blood pressure was right and all these things. This is, I mean, to hear somebody say that obesity isn't a choice just because you've got genetic predisposition to it, it's just exactly why people seem to be legitimising being overweight. Ozempic has proved that people are overweight because they eat too much. Because Ozempic tells you to stop eating, it makes you think that you've eaten and makes you feel full, so you don't eat. You may be predisposed to anything, but you also have a large percentage of responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So absolutely, it is in the patient's best interests, because if you're overweight, it'll take you longer to heal. You're more likely to have complications, the same if you smoke, and also the outcomes are usually better. So for a smoker, if you quit, say 4 weeks before surgery, you're 25%, your risk is lower of respiratory complications. So this is literally, of course, it's discriminatory, because you have to decide, you have to prioritise the people that are likely to survive the operations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. If you're wondering why I'm giggling, because we're going to talk sex, basically, it turns out bald blokes might just have a secret superpower when it comes to romance. A poll of 1,000 men suggests those without hair are more likely to get chatted up and receive admiring glances. With celebs like Bruce Willis making baldness cool, confidence is proving to be the ultimate game changer. Joining me now is comedian Josh Howie, who is, it has to be said, a very sexy bald man. Or, Josh, we could say that you got your head on kind of upside down, seeing as you have got a beard. So, Josh, bald men, you're much sexier, obviously.
Well, it's really hard because I think a lot of these people, there's like 1,000 people questioned, and I think that they were out like saying that when they're out clubbing, people look at them more if they're bald, like girls look at them. I am married with kids, so I haven't, I don't have fun anymore. So it's very hard for me to sort of quantify if that's true or not. I think my wife is definitely more sort of amorous towards me. She lets me make her cups of tea now, which she didn't before. So that could be a sign of something. Also, at work, Sophia Wensler, the newsreader at GB News, she said hello to me in the kitchen a few days ago. So that could be evidence of something, maybe. I don't know.
Josh, I don't want to burst your bubble, but Sophia also said hello to me. Just saying.
Okay, so I'll take that. Yeah. So exactly. Who knows? Also, my gay fan base has massively increased. It was 2, and it's now up to 6. So all of these things, I think, when you put them together, it shows there's definitely evidence.
So why do you think your wife and Sophia Wensler, it's not exactly a huge poll there, by the way, are more attracted to men who are less hairy on top? Is it because there's this link between testosterone?
That could be. It could be some deep biological need. I personally think it's also there's a sort of, it's very attractive, like men who've just given up. It's just a sign that it's over for us, that we've removed ourselves from the market now. And I think women are drawn to that. People want what they can't have. And shaving my head was just saying, I'm sorry, ladies, it's over for me.
So we want, actually, you're saying that women want more of a challenge, and a bald man, because you've let everything go, is more of a challenge.
I think so. They see that hope no longer exists in these eyes. And I think that that's what women ultimately want.
But you are growing a beard, though, Josh, so there's something else going on here.
Just out of boredom. Like, you just gotta, you can't do both together. That's a mistake. You gotta have a bit of stubble or something going on here, because it says, oh, I've given up, but I still exist as a human being.
Still a little bit of something going on there. Josh Howie, thank you very much for joining us and talking about hair, basically. What more can you say? Back to the wife now. Be a good boy. Thank you very much. OK, now let's see what my panel make of this. I love these heavy political debates on GB News, don't you? That's what we need more of these. Matthew Stadlen and Charlie Rowley are both with me, both of who have very fine heads of hair. Well, actually, Matthew Stadlen, you've got a little confession to make, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought I'd got to the point in life where if I go bald, that's OK. But the reason I'm sitting over here is because I spotted yesterday that there might be something happening. And if you sit over there, the camera zooms in over the top of your head.
I would just like you to prostrate yourself forward a bit now. Come on. Come on. Just here. Just a bit like that. That's it. Not that I was making it more obvious while you were doing that.
I started worrying about going bald when I was 16, but some men do look really, really good. I hope I haven't got his name wrong, but the actor, is he called Mark Strong?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yes, and what about Tucci? Stanley Tucci?
Yeah, I'm Vin Diesel for me.
Vin Diesel? He actually had a thing with one of my ex-girlfriends. Plus, Bruce Willis. I think
you can just drop that in the conversation.
Bruce Willis is cool, I think.
Yeah, Bruce Willis is very cool.
Yeah. I would look awful. I mean, probably people think I look awful anyway, but I would look particularly bad if I was bald because I'm so pale. So it would just look really odd.
We'll come back to that in a minute.
You can't have a skinhead if you're ginger very easily, because you then just sort of, you fade into nothingness.
Yeah, I can't say that live on air. I'll get cancelled. It's a Sunday afternoon. Charlie, you've got I know you've got a very, very sexy beard going on there now as well. So you're getting hairier rather than less hair.
I am. I'm only trying it for a few months, but I have to say, Well, what I will say is I've noticed, actually, having since grown this beard, even though it's divided a little bit of opinion, but I think that divide is a generational thing. So I think if you're slightly older, they still quite like people on telly sort of looking clean-shaven and sort of... But a younger generation, I turn heads, Dawn. I do.
You always turn heads, Charlie. My mother-in-law is watching this programme because she knows you're on it. And you, Dawn, of course.
Thank you very much. And I am still just about retaining all my hair despite to have been bleached over it. In any case, I am Dawn Newsroom. I do have hair. This is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show. And it gets better. But first, let's have a look at the weather, because it's a bit grim, so stay where you are. See you soon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The weather stays very unsettled as we head into the new working week. Often wet and windy, although signs of things becoming a bit drier and quieter later on in the week. Low pressure's anchored towards the west of the UK at the moment, tightly packed isobars indicating the strength of the wind, and weather fronts moving in from the southwest too, bringing some persistent rain at times. So confirmation of a wet start to the evening and overnight, a rain band pushing its way north into Scotland as we go through the overnight period, turning into snow across the hills here. And meanwhile, notice further outbreaks of rain moving in from the southwest across England and Wales. We'll need to keep an eye on the strength of the wind, particularly towards the southeast. Here we're likely to see gales at times overnight tonight. And a generally frost-free night tonight with temperatures around mid-single figures. As for the start of the new working week then, well, once again, with low pressure dominating, sitting close by towards the west of the UK, it'll be a very unsettled start to Monday. And across Scotland, there'll be a mixture of bright spells and a scattering of showers. The showers, it's a little bit wintry across the hills of Scotland, and a touch of frost possible in a few well-sheltered spots here. And across Northern Ireland, quite breezy, some outbreaks of showery rain at times, and showery bursts of rain too across western parts of England into Wales, with the clearest spells between the showers towards the south and east of England. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday then, with low pressure still close by, just sitting towards the west of the UK there, there'll be further showers or longer spells of rain in all parts. Some of the showers could be quite heavy, very blustery winds, particularly towards the south and southwest of the UK. And although temperatures will be close to the seasonal average, peaking in the range 6 to 9 Celsius, it's going to feel much cooler out and about given the wind and those showers at times too. Into the evening, with low pressure still close by, there'll be further showers or longer spells of rain in pretty much all parts of the UK. A few clear spells between, but also some quite blustery winds too. But with the blustery winds and those showers, it should stay fairly mild overnight. There'll be further rain or showers at times on Tuesday and Wednesday, but just a hint of high pressure starting to build in later in the week, so things could well turn a bit quieter.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Don't miss out as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
The Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 26th of January. This is the weekend on GB News, and thank you so much for your company this Sunday afternoon. Now, a damning poll finds just 1 in 10 think Labour are doing a good job in government, showing a collapse in support unprecedented in the modern era, with voters experiencing so-called buyer's remorse. But it's not all doom and gloom for Starmer. He seems to have a fan in, wait for it folks, President Trump, who maintains the Prime Minister is doing a very good job thus far and that the pair have a very good relationship. Could the President help boost the PM's popularity here at home though? And stricter age verification checks and a ban on doorstep drops will be introduced by the government to greater protect young people from knife crime. Is this just more papering over the cracks in the wake of that horror in Southport, though? I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend on GB News. So thank you very much for your company this Sunday afternoon. The weather is pretty grim out there. We've got another storm coming in, so you've got nowhere to go. So you may as well sit where you are, have a nice cup of tea, or maybe a glass of wine or something Sunday afternoon. I'm not gonna judge you, and carry on watching the show because it's going to be a really busy one, and we've got some fun as well. And it's really easy to get involved because this show is all about you. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our conversation. Keeping me company, I've got a wonderful panel today. The political commentator Matthew Stadlen and the former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley. And we've already discussed hair. And if you missed that, you can catch up, or we might come back to it because it was quite funny. It involved sex. Sorry, I said it. But before we get stuck into today's stories, here's the news with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Home Secretary has warned tech companies terrorist material viewed by Southport killer Axel Rudiker could inspire another atrocity unless they take action. Yvette Cooper has written to X, Meta, TikTok, Google and YouTube, calling on them to urgently review material accessed by the killer, which is still available online. Rudiker easily downloaded an Al-Qaeda training manual and watched graphic footage of a terrorist knife attack before he killed 3 young girls. It comes as it's been revealed the Home Office missed several opportunities to identify Rudiker as a terror threat. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch told GB News the issue of integration must be looked at following the Southport attack.
He should have been in love with this country. He should have been saying, this is the best country on earth. I say, and the parents, I don't know if they did or not, because that's how I feel. And I do think that we need to have a broader conversation about integration in this country. It's got to be active, not passive. It didn't matter so much when only a handful of people were coming from nearby countries at a very slow rate. Now, people from all over the place are coming very quickly, and because of technology, they can still keep their heads and their cultures elsewhere. This is dangerous.
Meanwhile, the government says stricter checks for online knife purchases will be introduced following the Southport attack. Retailers selling knives online will require ID to purchase and also on delivery. It's after it emerged Southport killer Axel Rudakabana bought the knife he used to kill 3 young girls from Amazon when he was just 17 years old. The government has now brought forward planned changes to online knife sales. In other news, Donald Trump has said he thinks Sir Keir Starmer has done a very good job thus far and said the pair will speak over the phone over the next 24 hours. The US president said he and the Prime Minister get along well, despite Sir Keir being Liberal, which he said is a little bit different from me. Mr. Trump told reporters on Air Force One that his first international trip could be to the UK or Saudi Arabia, the first country he travelled to as president during his first term. Sir Keir most recently met Mr. Trump at Trump Tower in New York during the presidential campaign. Now, a 53-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 48-year-old Claire Chick, who was found fatally injured in a street in Plymouth. Miss Chick, who was previously known as Claire Butler, was taken to hospital but sadly died on Thursday. Paul Butler has been charged with her murder and is due to appear before Plymouth Magistrates Court tomorrow. Israel has prevented thousands of displaced Palestinians from returning home to northern Gaza after accusing Hamas of breaching the ceasefire deal. This comes after Hamas released 4 Israeli female soldiers and Israel freed 200 Palestinian prisoners. But the Israeli government said Palestinians would not be allowed to travel north until plans were in place for the release of Israeli civilian Arbel Yehud. According to the deal, Hamas was to release civilians before soldiers. A 19-year-old man has died after his car was struck by a falling tree in Scotland during Storm Eowyn, which the Met Office says was the strongest storm to hit the UK in 10 years. Around 75,000 in Northern Ireland and 35,000 in Scotland are still without power. Some will have to wait several days to be reconnected. Meanwhile, travel services remain severely disrupted in Scotland, with trains and ferries suspended and roads closed. And it's not over yet. The Spanish-named storm Herminia is on the way and will bring heavy rain, gales and hill snow up from the southwest today and tomorrow. And Elon Musk has made a surprise appearance at a campaign event for Germany's right-leaning AfD, where he urged supporters to move beyond their past guilt. Speaking via video link to a hall of around 4,500 Alternative für Deutschland supporters, the tech billionaire said they are the best hope for Germany.
It's okay to be proud to be German. This is a very important principle, it's okay. It's good to be proud of German culture, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And yes, I do regret wearing exactly the same colour as a much younger, much naturally blonder, much more talented journalist, Sophia Wenzel. But apart from that, I'm having a great Sunday, so thank you for joining me. OK, let's get straight into today's stories. Sir Keir Starmer continues to face an uphill battle to win back the support of the public after a turbulent few months for his Labour government. New polling shows that just 1 in 10 people think Labour are doing a good job, while over half of those asked believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. The news comes a mere day after another poll put Reform UK ahead of Labour and the Tories in voting intentions. If an election was actually called tomorrow, and please God, no, not another one, the polling company Find Out Now has Reform polling at 26%, the Tories in at 23%, and Labour trailing behind in third at 22%. Joining me now is Reform UK mayoral candidate and former Skills Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Lovely to see you. All of these polls are very, very good news for Reform, aren't they?
It's amazing, and what is remarkable actually is a party is able to pull off both Labour and Conservatives. I mean, I found that in Lincolnshire as well. Places like Grimsby, we're pulling off Labour, and elsewhere across the Conservatives. I just think it's remarkable. I think there's so much apathy out there. People's really had enough of two mainstream parties, and I think trust in politicians is at an all-time low as well.
Well, talking of trust in politicians, one of the things, obviously, that has completely destroyed even more trust in politicians is the Southport incident. And the fact that many, many people are angry, they feel like questions haven't been answered. Do you think this has encouraged more people to turn to Reform, the fact that both main political parties, many people feel like they're hiding something?
Yes. And I think how the other mainstream media channels have been not reporting accurately. I mean, GBNews was very accurate with this. I remember going on Newsnight one time and being lambasted saying that the questions need to be answered. And you're right, though, because, I mean, that shocked the nation, hasn't it, what's happened? As a parent myself, it ripped my heart out. And those parents, those beautiful girls, have got a life sentence now. And it does feel like this, along with the grooming gangs, that there seems to be things that the public don't know about, and that causes more distrust. And we've got to have a full inquiry into both as well.
Yeah. Andrew, you have been in politics for a very long time. I mean, do you think that politicians do deliberately keep things back from the public?
I mean, I think if it's something in the national security, you know, if there's going to be some war or something like that, if it's some knowledge like that, that's different. But I just think that we've got to have transparency. And this is one reason why I think Reform's so well. I mean, look at that wonderful policewoman in Manchester who her attackers seemed to get let off at the time. And it was actually Reform and Nigel who called for him to be prosecuted and really push for that. And I think it just feels to the public out there, what I'm hearing on the ground is that Reform are the only people who's in tune with the general public and listening. And I'm sure that governments do hide stuff, and but this has got to change, hasn't it? We've got to really get that trust back in politicians, because it's so undemocratic. I mean, look how Labour got in back in July on the low turnout. And that's very undemocratic in a way, isn't it? We want more people to go out however they vote.
But Andrea, how would Reform do that? I mean, you are at the end of the day politicians, you were a Conservative politician. How would you do that? How would you win people back over to get the full trust of the public?
I think stop promising things that you've got no intention of delivering. I mean, I see that, you know, even on a micro level, that we've got some of the other candidates promising to dual carriageway certain roads where they've been in power at the local council and have never done this, and have never done it under a Conservative government. So it's things even at a micro level. Look, just promise what you can deliver and start building up that trust again. Because, and also, the mainstream media has got so much that they need to do as well to restore that trust. We've seen for years, even during the Brexit years, how it was very, I mean, I remember being on Question Time over the years and actually it being a biased panel and 4-1. I just think people like fairness, and GB News, they do have a fair debate so fair play to you. So I think the national media, as well as politicians, need to step up to the mark, just like I feel Reform are doing. Tell the truth, say it as it is, and we want common sense back into politics.
Very much so. Talking of fair debate, we had Ben Habib on this very show yesterday, and he was saying that the problem with the Reform Party at the moment is they have gone too conservative, both with a capital and a small c. What would you say to Ben Habib?
I mean, Ben's always seems to be attacking the Conservatives, doesn't he? And look how he timed him leaving the party on the same day as my defection. I do feel he's got a lot of sour grapes there, unfortunately. I don't know what the background is because I wasn't in Reform then. But what he's got to realise, for Reform to actually form a government, we've got to pull off Labour and Conservatives. So he might despise the Conservatives, but those voters, we need to appeal to as well as to Labour. And we are doing just that.
And just finally, Andrea, the latest legislation that we are expecting to hear more about today and this week is knife legislation. The Home Office saying that they are going to make it tougher for under 18s to buy knives. Now, as far as I'm aware, that legislation is always in place. Is this more papering over the cracks of the aftermath of Southport?
Yes, I think so, because, I mean, gosh, I remember just, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a horrific case of a neighbouring constituency where a man got murdered by youths by knives. And it was shocking. It was in broad daylight, just as he was leaving work. And so the legislation is in place, but we need action. We actually need the police to stop all these hate crimes and actually catch real criminals, because I do believe in that broken window theory. These small crimes we need to jump on before they progress to bigger crimes. There's got to be a place of consequence for any crime.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. That's Dame Andrea Jenkins there, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. OK, well, let's see what my panel make of this. Political commentator Matthew Stadler and former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley are both still with me, which is a bit of a miracle, to be honest with you. What do you make of what Andrea's just said, Charlie?
Well, I think any election that takes place, first thing to say is you want an increase in the turnout of people. You want people to take part in the democratic process. I think that's what she was saying at the start. And I think the way in which Reform are ahead in the polls is testament to the fact that Labour are doing so badly so quickly. That's reflected in the poll that's out today that we talked about. And I think that's because there's a lack of strategy. I think if you just go back to 2010 and 2015, David Cameron and George Osborne came in, albeit in a coalition, but they made some very, very tough decisions when it came to austerity, cutting public finances in order to balance the books that they had been left behind by Labour. But they brought the country with them because there was something for everybody at the next generation.
They did not bring the country with them.
They absolutely did. All in this together was the mantra that they kept pushing out there, and they made it clear that they'll make efficiency savings, but also that they'll protect certain budgets like the NHS and schools. But they were clearly brought people with them because they were re-elected with a whole majority.
They slashed so much in public life, didn't they? Well, if they did win the next election, it's true. But what was the percentage of vote they got?
There you go. Well,
didn't mean they brought the country with them. They did well enough to get elected, but a lot of people were left behind, and we're now dealing with that legacy, Charlie.
I don't agree with all of that, but what we're certainly seeing now is a Labour government that's come in to take away the winter fuel allowance, that's increased national insurance contributions when it said it wasn't going to do that. It's been a bit increases the inheritance tax on farmers. It has been scattergun politics without a direction of travel, all the while, as you said earlier on, Dawn, giving huge pay rises to public sector workers, train drivers, for example, which I think haven't brought all strikes to an end. There is still talk
they're still going on strike.
So it hasn't brought the disruption to the end to an end. So there hasn't been a strategy. Labour haven't been able to articulate the positive side. It's all been doom and gloom, which is why so many people in the first 6 months of the Labour government are turning their backs on them.
Yeah, I would say that it hasn't been a brilliant start, not helped by the fact that there are a lot of people in the media lining up to have a pop at them. And that's
you're blaming the media.
Scrutiny, I think that's called.
Well, you could call it scrutiny, but you could also accept that there are a lot of right-leaning newspapers that aren't exactly banging the drum for this government. Of course we need scrutiny, but there are a lot of right-leaning commentators in this country who'd love to see this government fail. And yes, I had a pop at the former government, the former Tory government, but as in America now, it's so divided to the point where people want Starmer to be humiliated on the international stage. He's our Prime Minister. We should have some degree, don't you think, whatever our politics, of respect for our government. Yes, scrutiny, but let's also continue to be proud in our country. Andrea Jenkins there said that the way to re-engage people, and I agree, there's a lot of disenchantment with politics, and we needed a far bigger turnout than we got at the election, and Labour was not voted in on an overwhelming wave of enthusiasm, started its government, its time in government, from a very low ebb.
Well, they were the lesser of the evils, weren't they, if we're honest?
It was much more about voting against the Conservatives. I'm not sure people particularly have buyer's remorse, by the way, about the Tories, which is why you're seeing Reform do well in the polls, because people who are upset with Labour aren't necessarily going to go back to the Tories after the last 14 years. But on Andrea's point specifically, she wants politicians to stop promising things that they then don't deliver. Let me give you an absolutely glaring example of the way in which Reform is doing precisely that. Reform would have us all believe that if they get into government, they will pick people up in the Channel and they will take them back to France. I can tell you now, live on national television, and please get me back on if Nigel Farage ever becomes Prime Minister or Home Secretary, that will not happen. And it won't happen because the French won't allow it to happen. And guess what? Farage doesn't want to go to war with the French. That is a prime example of, and it's a flagship policy of Reform, as I understand it. It's a prime example of what Andrea Jenkins, who abandoned her own party to join Reform, has just been criticising.
Well, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But
Can we get your crystal ball out as well?
Well, yes, but I think, look, Reform, the reason why Reform are doing so well in the polls, and I agree, actually, with Matthew on that, people rejected the Tories because of the Sleason scandal that took place, the chopping and changing of the leadership, the political disarray and lack of direction that there was. But that's not to say that people embraced the Labour government. They obviously didn't. That's why there was a low turnout. That's why they are looking to Reform as the alternative, as Matthew said. But it's also, more than that, people are seeing that there is this undercurrent of a two-tiered system in society, where there have been issues that have been so suppressed, where you can't talk about immigration without being labelled a racist, where you can't talk about community...
Yes, you can. We talk about immigration all the time, on left and right, without people necessarily calling people racist. I think that immigration levels are probably a bit too high, OK? And I think the state should do more to tackle illegal immigration. And obviously, I'm not a racist. Obviously, a lot of people who care about immigration think that you need to have it lower so that people can integrate more effectively, who are worried about pressure on public services, although also recognising lots of people come to help the NHS and so forth. They're not racist. Some people are racist, and those people exploit immigration to further their own racist ends.
It's not just about immigration. It's about the grooming gang scandal, which we've had, for example. The reason why there's calls for a national inquiry is because the breakdown in the state, so local authorities, as well as the police, as well as government, to be able to articulate a particular problem within a particular community that has for too long gone unaddressed because of fears of talking about it. We're talking about, Axel Rudakabana, Prevent programme, where it, was probably unable and totally failed to refer this guy up to the Channel programme, so from Prevent to Channel.
Yeah, which is the next level.
The next level up, because somebody was, I probably would argue, probably found it too easy. Do you think
that was an element of being afraid of being accused of being racist?
I think the opposite. I think the person that was looking at this report thought it was far too easy to say, well, I think they're just interested in international affairs. That's the reason that they've given in the Sunday Times, and therefore the case...
They were clearly, it seems to me, but I can't...
You don't think there's any element of race in the fact that they were nervous about that case?
No, because Prevent is designed primarily to stop Islamist terrorism, for goodness sake. The problem with this case...
It's designed to prevent terrorism.
Yes,
and
but
they maintain...
the biggest preoccupation, I think, is Islamism, followed by the far right. So it would be absurd if the Prevent programme was not dealing with people who might be Islamists because they were worried about racism. With the grooming scandal, there clearly seem to have been failings, and I hope those will come out. So for God's sake, this evil never happens again. But let's just quickly talk about the grooming gangs, the rape gangs, as we should call them.
Yes.
Absolutely horrific. We had a report in 2014 from Professor Jay, I think it was.
Yes.
Before her big report, the national report, she specifically put a report in on Rotherham in which she identified identified, as I understand it, that a disproportionate number of abusers seem to be coming, I think she described them as of Pakistani heritage background, right? And she also identified, I think, that there was a reluctance to call this out because of that. We've known about this scandal, perhaps not quite the extent, and we perhaps haven't talked about it enough for 10 years. It's not new.
Exactly.
We should still be talking about it.
I don't want to go down the grooming gangs
but
debate again. But
you're absolutely right. But that's why, you know, when you have somebody like Nigel Farage that is out there talking about it, and for saying exactly that reason, for too long we've known about it, but we've never done anything about it, and leading on to the riots in the summer on the back of the Axel Rujapakana situation in Southport. But, you know, the public not hearing actually what we could have learned about this guy earlier on, branding those people...
Call a criminal rioter a criminal rioter, and they were far right.
Well, Prime Minister brandishing people far right in this country, I don't think was a way to sort of...
If it looks like a frog and it quacks like a frog, it probably is a frog.
Well, if it's a quacking frog...
I thought it was a duck.
If it's a quacking frog, I mean... No, I've seen everything.
What do they...
in any case...
They croak. If it croaks like a frog.
If you have seen a quacking frog this afternoon, please let us know on gbnews.com/your say, and possibly put the wine down. Any case, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, gbnews.com. I am Daubney, so I'm not a quacking frog, although anything's possible. This is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Now, the knife crime. Stricter age verification checks and a ban on doorstep drops by delivery companies are to be introduced by the government in the wake of that Southport tragedy. Is this another example of papering over the cracks? So all of that and much more to come. This is GB News. I'm Dawn Neeson, and we'll see you very soon.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rub it in. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer two alternatives, either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. Yeah. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, that adulation, the buzz of winning games, and you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down there.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. Thank you for joining us. OK, right, we are now going to talk knife crime. Yes, I know we do, but stricter age verification checks and a ban on doorstep reps are to be introduced by the government in the wake of the Southport tragedy. Now, as far as I'm aware, these laws are already there. So I'm not entirely sure what is new about this. But retailers selling knives online will now require ID verification for consumers after the government confirmed it's introducing more robust checks. So what do you make of this one? Amazon and other retailers are now going to need to ask for ID and proof of age when they deliver these items, because that's how we know the Southport attacker, whose name I'm not going to mention anymore because it's absolute Phil, got his knife. So let's see what my panel make of this. Political commentator Matthew Stadlen, well, you know who they are. Matthew Stadlen and Charlie Rowley, both still with me. Right, OK, now, as far as I'm aware, this new legislation that the Home Office are introducing is going to say exactly what we already have in place. You have to be 18. You can't buy a knife if you're under 18. And delivery companies are meant to ask for proof that you are an adult if they deliver a knife to you.
I think this
is already there.
Two-step identification, I think, from what I've learned so far. So clearly, this is going to be a multi-step approach to trying to prevent this sort of evil happening again. Is it going to be prevented because of the availability or a lessening of the availability of knives? No. Much more than that needs to be done, such as, for example, looking at prevent, maybe redefining what terrorism is, so it doesn't have to necessarily be attached to a specific political ideology, whether that's Islamism or the far right or whatever. But clearly, a lot more needs to be done on knives themselves. I live in Notting Hill. I go to the Notting Hill Carnival every year. We've had zombie knives there. Is there any excuse? Yes, I know we have free speech absolutists, and they may say, well, we should have guns in this country for all I know. I don't think we should have guns in this country. We certainly shouldn't be having zombie knives in our country. They should not be available to anyone, however old you are. Now, I'm not saying
they are illegal.
Yeah, but we've got to do more somehow to try and clamp down on them. Some of the knives that you've been floating, that you've shown, OK, what possible means, what possible use for those knives are there? You know,
none.
Right,
none.
so...
I mean, many of those knives, zombie knives in particular, are already illegal. Much of this legislation that Home Office have announced with, grand reaction to the Southport, we are doing something, are already in place.
They are. And I think what is so frustrating is that, take a step back, the zombie knife business, which is illegal.
Yeah.
How on earth you can still buy that, even if you're over a particular age, even if you say that you're over a particular age, even if you give your neighbour's address and not your own, or give a relative's ID, whatever you can cheat the system, you will cheat the system if you want to get hold of something. There has to be... So I'm reluctant to attack Amazon and online companies, for example, when you're selling a kitchen knife, which goes into the hand of someone who is clearly delusional and pure evil, because a kitchen knife is a kitchen knife. You can get that anyway. If it's not on Amazon...
You can open the kitchen drawer.
You can open the kitchen drawer. So that's not the issue. It is in this case, because that's, as Matthew was saying, you need to make sure Prevent and all the other services, if you have been identified as someone that could be biomaterial, that's a risk, that needs to be shut down. But the idea that you can still buy from Amazon a zombie knife that, as Matthew says...
You can't buy a zombie knife on Amazon. That is illegal. You can buy knives on Amazon, but not a zombie knife. They are illegal to be sold in this country.
I really hope that is the case, because I still think that you see them on the streets. If it's not through Amazon, it might be through some other online purpose, because they are still out there. And we've been saying this for over 10 years now, where they come from. I mean, I remember back in 2016, the London Mayoral campaign, that was a huge issue at the time.
Yeah.
We've had 2 different mayors since then, I think, and, nothing seems to have been done. So I do think, actually, if you do get hold of these, particularly zombie knives, online, by whatever means, then the online company has to pay. And there has to be actually repercussions for the
And by the way, guys, can I just very quickly say...
It's a bit like... Because the only thing I can equate it to during my... is, the Grenfell tragedy. So, developers, property developers that do not take down cladding or do not take down the responsibility of having put it up, they are the ones to pay.
And,
it's not the
and social media.
And social
by the
media
way,
companies
the
too.
video, apparently, one of the extreme videos that this psychopath watched before the murders was on X, right? And apparently, I don't know whether this has changed, and he's not here to defend himself, Musk, although I'm sure you'd love to have him on the show. They haven't taken it down. There is such filth and wickedness on some of these social media platforms, and we as societies are not gripping it. Now, does this mean that, or any of this, knives, the availability of this extreme violence, does this explain these evil crimes on their own? Almost certainly not. But let's do everything we can on all fronts to protect our children.
Look, knife crime, we need to do something. We all know we need to do something on knife crime. But there was a Sun front page, I'm not sure if we have it, from during last week when this was all going on, before the Amazon killer. OK, the knife was not the issue in this story. This is absolutely dead cat. Look over there at the knife. Blame, if I was Amazon, I'd have sued over that, by the way. Look over there, blame Amazon, blame Elon Musk for his social media platforms, blame this, rather than looking at what's actually going on and what was wrong with this system that let this kid get away with what he did.
And that's absolutely right, because, you know, in terms of accessing, as a knife through Amazon, it's a kitchen knife. You can get it anywhere in any store. It didn't have to be an online. It was the delusional evil within this particular individual that went out to do what he did. And all of those things that you talked about, the Prevent programme, that needs to be looked into. And the people responsible for intervening, that failed in this case, need to be held to account.
Yeah, no, indeed. Right, OK, we've run out of time on that one, unfortunately. It's a huge debate, but let me know what you think about that one. Do you think this is the issue here, or do you think there's more going on? I'm Daubney, and this is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show. I'm asking if we need to take a leaf from Donald Trump's book and make comedy great again in British politics. You could argue we've already got a few clowns, but let's get those news headlines with Sophia Wensler first.
Dawn, thank you. Your headlines at 2:33. The Home Secretary has warned tech companies terrorist material viewed by Southport killer Axel Ruder-Cabana could inspire another atrocity unless they take action. Yvette Cooper has written to X, Meta, TikTok, Google and YouTube, calling on them to urgently review material accessed by the killer, which is still available online. Ruder-Cabana easily downloaded an Al-Qaeda training manual and watched graphic footage of a terrorist knife attack before he killed 3 young girls. It comes as it's been revealed the Home Office missed several opportunities to identify Ruder-Cabana as a terror threat. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch told GB News the issue of integration must be looked at following the Southport attack.
He should have been in love with this country. He should have been saying, this is the best country on earth. I say, and the parents, I don't know if they did or not, because that's how I feel. And I do think that we need to have a broader conversation about integration in this country. It's got to be active, not passive. It didn't matter so much when only a handful of people were coming from nearby countries at a very slow rate. Now, people from all over the place are coming very quickly, and because of technology, they can still keep their heads and their cultures elsewhere. This is dangerous.
In other news, Donald Trump has said he thinks Sir Keir Starmer has done a very good job thus far and said the pair will speak over the phone over the next 24 hours. The US president said he and the Prime Minister get along well, despite Sir Keir being Liberal, which he said is a little bit different from me. Mr. Trump told reporters on Air Force One that his first international trip could be to the UK or Saudi Arabia, the first country he travelled to as a president during his first term. Sir Keir most recently met with Mr. Trump at Trump Tower in New York during the presidential campaign. Now, a 53-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 48-year-old Claire Chick, who was found fatally injured in a street in Plymouth. Miss Chick, who was previously known as Claire Butler, was taken to hospital but sadly died on Thursday. Paul Butler has been charged with her murder and is due to appear before Plymouth Magistrates Court tomorrow. And Strictly Come Dancing star Wyn Evans has apologised after being caught on camera making a sexual comment about one of the show's female presenters. The Welsh opera singer has been touring with the live show after competing on the BBC One programme with Katya Jones last year. In the recording obtained by the Mail on Sunday, the 52-year-old was heard making a demeaning sexual remark to a woman during the launch event on the 16th of January. Evans has responded with a statement saying, "My language was inappropriate and unacceptable, for which I sincerely apologise." Those are the latest GB News headlines. Sam Francis will have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to very unsettled weather across the UK over the next few days, all of us seeing some rain at times, often pretty blustery too. Low pressure is anchored towards the west of the UK, a deep air of low pressure, tightly backed isobars, indicating the strength of the wind, and weather fronts moving in from the southwest as we head through the rest of the day on Sunday. So looking at things in more detail for this afternoon, and confirmation of wet and windy weather sweeping its way north and eastwards across the UK. The far north of Scotland hold on to some fine conditions, certainly until later in the afternoon, and started to turn brighter with some showers developing across the southwest of the UK. Particularly blustery with gales, though, out toward the west and southwest of the UK. Quite chilly towards the north, mild elsewhere, but those temperatures pretty academic given the very unsettled weather. As we head into the evening and overnight, we hold on to some rain across central parts of Scotland. Towards the north, there's still some fine conditions to end the day, but further south, as I say, there will be some rain, some hill snow too across central parts of Scotland. For Northern Ireland, it's a blustery end to Sunday, some showery bursts of rain, and pretty showery across the central slice generally of the UK, with some clearer spells towards the south for a time, but notice further outbreaks of rain starting to push in from the southwest, and that heralds a pretty unsettled night to come across the UK. The first band of rain with some hill snow affecting the far north of the UK there. A further pulse of wet weather moving its way northeastwards across England and Wales. We need to keep an eye on the strength of the wind, particularly down towards the southeast tonight. Gales are quite likely in places here. And wherever you are, generally frost-free. A touch of frost possible towards the far north of Scotland, but elsewhere temperatures generally in mid-single figures. As for us, Monday then, it's a very unsettled start to the new working week, I'm afraid. Low pressure dominating once again. Showers or longer spells of rain in all parts of the UK. Blustery winds too, particularly out towards the south and west of the UK. Some particularly heavy rain across parts of Wales at times too. And again, those temperatures close to the seasonal average, 5 to 9 Celsius, but the wind and rain feeling much cooler out and about.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Daubney. And just a quickie, if you are interested, there is a quacking frog. You need to catch up on the programme to find out what I'm talking about. There is a quacking frog, and it is indeed ginger.
This has saved me, Dawn. This would go viral.
It's not really an idiot. There is a quacking frog, and there is a quacking frog, and it is actually matching colour scheme.
How appropriate that it is ginger. After I embarrass myself yet again on national TV, there is a quacking frog, and it's ginger.
Yeah. So you can, if you've missed all that entertainment, you can catch up by or going to the website and catch up on the show.
Even made Nana laugh.
We can put it out on social media. It's even made Nana laugh. I mean, you know, and with those two, that takes some drink. There's blood. There's blood there. Talking of Nana, she is here at 3 o'clock with another brilliant show, and she's going to tell us exactly what's coming up. Nana, take it away.
Well, but I won't forget about the quacking frog, Matthew. So I'll be using that one when we next have a head-to-head. But listen, coming up in my show, we're going to be talking about whether the Southport attack could have actually been prevented. And by that, I mean there are so many layers and different agencies that saw the attacker for his mental health or for his behaviour, even his parents, yet the dots weren't joined up. So is it sort of time for us now to have a better communication between all the different care services in this country? Because otherwise we keep hearing the phrase, lessons will be learned, and another one fell through the cracks, and we're not really doing anything about it. So we're going to be talking about that. Plus, if you fancy getting abs proper abs, a six-pack in 70 days. I have a trainer who's going to be live with us to talk about that too. So loads on the show. Make sure you join me.
Brilliant. So that's Nana at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Straight after this show, no quacking frogs involved, ginger or otherwise. Possibly. Thanks, Nana. OK, now, is it time to make comedy great again in British politics? Now, before you insert your own clown joke there, we all know those, but should we take a leaf out of Trump's book? Let's have a look at this.
And now there's light not only over America. I've heard it from even our enemies. They call up and they say, sir, we hate you, we do hate you, but there's light over the world right now. They hate me. Some of them hate me. If they liked me, you got a problem, right? They like Sleepy Joe. What's not to like? You know, they'd call up. It's funny. I was told today by one of the big leaders of the world, we'd call for a telephone call with the President of the United States a year ago, and it'd say, we'd like to speak with, who is this? It's the head of Germany, the head of, name it, the head of France, the name of any country, it didn't matter. He would never pick up the call. They'd say, he'll call you back in 2 months. 2 months. He has his schedule. He's extremely busy sleeping. No.
Now, I'm sorry, but whatever you think of Donald Trump's politics, I mean, there is an element of comic timing there and sort of like, you know, taking the mickey out of himself. And so many of you getting in touch, by the way, about Trump saying how he thinks Keir Starmer's doing a good job and saying he might be slightly sarcastic about that one. I might be agreeing with you. Anyway, let's analyse that comic timing of Donald Trump by talking to comedian Nicholas DeSanto. Nicholas, thank you very much for joining. Now that is a very good clip. I mean, you know, it's a politician, leader of the free world, newly elected. But personally, I'm not a comedian like you, obviously, but I thought that was quite good comic timing and delivery there.
Yeah, hi, Don. Thanks for having me. Hello. Good to be here. Of course, he's very good. He's funny. His timing is perfect. And of course, you know, the best comedy is the comedy which is truth-based. And of course, everything he was saying had a kernel of truth to it. You know, Sleepy Joe, who was absent for a while. And he's very likable. He comes from TV industry. Obviously, he is a performer. And he has this... this air about him, this personability, but despite being a billionaire, people can relate to him. We saw that in the McDonald's appearance. We saw him do the refuse collector stunt with the truck and the Zile and everything. And people relate to him because he talks like them and he even eats like them. So he comes up as one of them.
Nicholas, I'm sorry, we're having trouble with your line now. We're hearing every other word, so we will try and get you back, but for now, we'll say goodbye. And I'm going to talk about comic timing with my panel, Matthew Stadler and Charlie Rowley. OK, you've got great comic timing, Matthew. I mean, we've done quacking frogs, ginger quacking frogs. What do you think? I mean, that was a good delivery. I mean, it was impressive.
Personally, I find Trump a bore and a rambler. And the thing I find confusing, by the way...
sit on the fence more, Matthew.
The thing I find confusing about some of the ways that in which he talks is he's completely dismissive about sleepy Joe Biden, who admittedly does look a little bit sleepy. But he's the president of the United States. And two things here. I mean, maybe I've misremembered this, but wasn't there a time in American politics where there was at least a vestige of respect between presidents and former presidents, where they wouldn't just be throw around playground slurs like Sleepy Joe Biden? And the other thing is, it was only this week that he was sitting next to the bloke, and they're trying to be a little bit civil to each other. So I don't like the name-calling stuff. I think it's ugly, and I don't want that in our politics. In terms of humour, Keir Starmer is, let's face it, not the most obviously humorous person in front of camera.
I think that's fair to say.
And if the worst thing, far worse than not being particularly humorous, is if you're not particularly humorous and you try to be funny. So he's just got to be Keir Starmer, do his thing. The one thing we all know in life is try to be yourself or the best version of yourself.
Well, there we are.
Go on.
Sunday sermon.
Charlie, you're always the best version of yourself.
Well, I try to be, but I I think that's right. I think, look, Trump is a showman. Like, he's been in television. He knows how to work an audience. He knows how to work a crowd. It is funny, though, because I think Matt's right. Look, you know, some of the things that he said, they have been very quite cutting and not what you'd expect from. But this is the point. It's not what you'd expect from a leader of the free world or someone that should be a statesman, but he has been able to capitalise, I think, an audience that for too long are maybe bored of that.
But maybe that's the appeal of Trump, that he doesn't play politics because he's not a politician.
He's not a politician. And that's why it's interesting when you see, for example, at Jimmy Carter's funeral, obviously, he was sat next to Obama. They were having a nice chin wag.
Yeah.
Which is also, by the way, weird, because Obama himself, do you remember, he made that joke about Donald Trump's manhood, be careful what I say, but pre-Watershed. And a lot of people laughed, and people on the left would have been delighted, a lot of them. I thought, no, you just don't go there.
Exactly.
And then how do you then sit next to the bloke, sit next to Trump, having insulted him in that very intimate way, and kind of I find it quite weird.
I mean, because I think they have got the Whitehall, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, don't they, where actually they take the mick out of themselves and former presidents. Yeah. I mean, the only other character that I remember in the UK, Tony Blair, was very able to charm as well as be
I was thinking about him. Was he funny, though? He was charming, he had the right language a lot. Forget, again, his politics. He was very good at delivering.
Boris Johnson.
But was he funny?
Boris
Johnson. If he'd stayed a comedian and never been Prime Minister, this country would be in a far better place than it is, because he is a very good comedian and a very good writer.
No, you're right. But also, I mean, Theresa May, someone like Sir Keir Starmer, maybe not the most humorous, but when she does have a sense of humour, and when that came out at some of the award ceremonies, there was a lot of love.
The running through the cornfields.
Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious. We have to go now. Back to your quacking frog. OK, if you are in search of the mysterious quacking frog, you might need it somewhere hot and exotic, and so where there's winter sun. And here is a forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's plenty of sunshine on offer for many over the next couple of days in Europe, but there is some heavy rain as well, particularly for parts of Portugal, northern Spain, northwestern parts of France, and some blustery westerly winds as well continuing throughout Monday. Further east, though, there is plenty of sunshine on offer for southern parts of Italy, Greece, Cyprus, seeing plenty of sunshine throughout Monday afternoon. Temperatures here generally in the mid to high teens, with the highest temperatures likely across Tenerife, where we'll see temperatures around 22 or 23.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's the body image thing that concerns me. It's young girls watching Love Island and really skinny girls and young boys
hit the gym after this. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they're seeing perfect bodies on the screen.
You don't need to go in the gym, Maymoon. You look gorgeous as you are, love.
I know. You see, the reason I don't enter anything like that, Kerry, is you know
you're going to win.
Exactly. And it's not fair. It's not fair, I think, on everybody else being there.
It's not fair.
No.
But, Kerry, what do you think about the body image thing? You know, when you talk about your daughter, is that something that you'd worry about, her comparing herself to the likes of what she sees on the screen?
Now, this is where there's a conflict of interest for me, because I've been brought up in this industry since I was 17, so it's massively affected me. I mean, when you're put on the front cover of magazines after having a baby with a stretch mark in the circle of shame, you know, it does do a psychological effect on you. I think a lot of celebrities who've been around for so many years, as I have been affected by that. But everyone has to bear in mind, I've had my children. I'm in my 40s. I feel I'm entitled to have my tweaks and try and improve on what I think are going down south, and health and safety, tripping over any things that I don't want to be tripping over anymore. But I definitely do believe, I mean, majority of the young girls that go on Love Island, they all have the same big lips, the same big eyelashes, all the butt implants, and they're barely in their 20s. You know, it's if you go to the airport now, I remember going to the airport and I looked around and all the girls looked exactly the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello. Oh, we're running out of time. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Newsroom. Thank you for your company this Sunday afternoon. Matthew Stadler, Charlie Rowley are still here. And you know what? All the heavy political debate we've been doing all week, we've had a bit of a giggle this afternoon, so thank you for humouring us as well. But the comments that have got most of you going are on balding men being sexy. And we didn't have that much time to discuss that. So, Charlie, you had a really good story. Tell us about hair.
Well, yes, clearly no bald men were available for this panel this afternoon because Matthew and I have got a full head there. But yes, I just remember I'm very conscious about hair because
you look very well groomed.
Well, thank you. But I used to have terrible haircuts as a child, and I never thought that was quite on point. But now, going to my barbers, I like to have hair because I find hair very attractive.
Three things to say. One, why are there very few bald politicians? Two, Stanley Tucci is a very handsome bald man. And three, my takeaway from today is thank God the quacking frog exists and he's ginger.
But your full confession was the quacking frog is in a museum.
Oh, no, but also alive.
Oh, are you sure?
In Australia.
Are you sure?
Western Australia.
Fake news.
Yeah. No,
I
Google
think
it.
it's fake news.
Look it up.
Yeah.
Promise you.
And it's ginger.
Yeah.
Is ginger sexy? Is ginger sexy? What
you think it is?
I think it is. I married one. I have to say that, though, don't I? Yeah. Anyway, thank you for all your comments and your company this afternoon. Really appreciate. Don't go anywhere, though, because Nana is up next. But first, the really important thing this weekend is that weather. And here is Marco with all your details. Thanks once again. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday. See you soon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The weather stays very unsettled as we head into the new working week. Often wet and windy, although signs of things becoming a bit drier and quieter later on in the week. Low pressure's anchored towards the west of the UK at the moment, tightly packed isobars indicating the strength of the wind, and weather fronts moving in from the southwest too, bringing some persistent rain at times. So confirmation of a wet start to the evening and overnight, a rain band pushing its way north into Scotland as we go through the overnight period, turning to snow across the hills here. And meanwhile, notice further outbreaks of rain moving in from the southwest across England and Wales. We'll need to keep an eye on the strength of the wind, particularly towards the southeast. Here we'll like to see gales at times overnight tonight. And a generally frost-free night tonight with temperatures around mid-single figures. As for the start of the new working week then, well, once again, with low pressure dominating, sitting close by towards the west of the UK, it'll be a very unsettled start to Monday. And across Scotland, there'll be a mixture of bright spells and a scattering of showers. The showers, it's a little bit wintry across the hills of Scotland, and a touch of frost possible in a few well-sheltered spots here. And across Northern Ireland, quite breezy, some outbreaks of showery rain at times, and showery bursts of rain too across western parts of England into Wales, with the clearest spells between the showers towards the south and east of England. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday then, with low pressure still close by, just sitting towards the west of the UK there, there'll be further showers or longer spells of rain in all parts. Some of the showers could be quite heavy, very blustery winds, particularly towards the south and southwest of the UK. And although temperatures will be close to the seasonal average, peaking in the range 6 to 9 Celsius, it's going to feel much cooler out and about given the wind and those showers at times too. Into the evening, with low pressure still close by, there'll be further showers or longer spells of rain in pretty much all parts of the UK. A few clear spells between, but also some quite blustery winds too. But with the blustery winds and those showers, it should stay fairly mild overnight. There'll be further rain or showers at times on Tuesday and Wednesday, but just a hint of high pressure starting to build in later in the week, so things could well turn a bit quieter.
we can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won